Why is it that some Etsy shops are able to sell millions of dollars of product each year, while so many others struggle to make any sales at all? This is critical information that all Etsy sellers need to know so they can build their business the right way, so they can take the necessary steps to achieve success. In this video, I'll be discussing 4 secrets of million-dollar Etsy shops that I found after studying 20 of the top shops. And then, perhaps even more important, I'll discuss information from Etsy's filings to the government and investors that reveal data showing the uncomfortable reality faced by sellers competing for sales on the Etsy.com marketplace. My name is Will. I'm a software company chief financial officer with an MBA and a lot of experience working with companies to build their businesses. As sellers or potential sellers on Etsy, we're going to spend a lot of time trying to build our shops. We want to know if we have a reasonable chance of being successful on the platform, and if we do, how to go about it. For example, I want to know what % of the sellers who start on Etsy each year get no sales and end up quitting. What % of sellers achieve annual sales of $10,000, of $50,000, or of $100,000 or more? What are the characteristics of the shops that failed versus the shops that find these different levels of success? These and several other questions would be really helpful to know. However, because Etsy does not share this information, or at least not as far as I could find, we're left to use third-party tools and analysis. These sources won't answer many of my questions, but we can still learn a lot. I used a tool called Etsy Hunt to identify the top performing stores on Etsy. There are other tools with similar capabilities, but I've not used this one before and wanted to try it out. Using Etsy Hunt, you can search for competing products and shops on Etsy, do keyword research, and use it to optimize listings, among other things. If anyone wants to check it out, there's a free version available so you can give it a test drive. I'll link to it in the notes to the video. For my analysis today, I started with a report listing the top 500 Etsy shops. The report listed the top 500 Etsy shops based on number of units sold in the 30 days ending April 24. I then took the top 10 stores and the bottom 10 stores on that list of 500 to study them and see what I could learn. Before I get into the analysis, there are a few general things to know about Etsy to help the analysis make more sense. First, according to Etsy, there were 5.4 million active sellers on the Etsy.com platform as of the end of 2022. So when we look at the top 500 sellers, they represent the top 0.009% of all sellers. From that perspective, these are not the average sellers. These are the ones who are by far the most successful. Second, the average sale transaction on Etsy.com overall was just $42 in the fourth quarter of 2022. And third, women made up about 82% of sellers in the US in 2022 and 77% in the UK, whereas buyers were a similar proportion at about 80% women as of a few years ago, although I couldn't find a recent number for that figure. So keep these facts in mind as we move into the analysis. Okay, here's the full data set. I know you won't be able to see it very well. Don't worry though, I'm going to zoom in on parts of it as we go through the discussion. So here we go. Here's what I learned from the analysis. Number 1, target customer and product focus of the store. The top stores seem to target women shoppers, not men, which makes sense since women are most of the sellers and most of the buyers on the site. It would probably be difficult to get a store with products primarily targeted towards men into the ranks of the top stores. And note how focused the stores are in the products that they sell. For example, look at the top category of stores, which is home and living, making up 6 of the stores in my sample, or 30% of the group. I Love Lotus sells healing crystals. That's it. New Moon Beginnings sells a slightly wider range with healing crystals, jewelry, energy, and aromatherapy items. World Incense Stores sells crystals, jewelry, incense, smudge, and candles. In the craft supplies category, the second most prevalent category here at 25% of the sample stores, we see Planner Kate 1 selling stickers and organizers, Beadboat 1 selling jewelry supplies, jewelry making supplies, and jewelry, and Heather Roberts Art selling SVG cut files for Cricut, font, and watercolor clip art, all digital products. We see the same for almost all these stores. Their product selection is very focused. You won't find them selling an odd mix of sweatshirts, gardening supplies, jewelry, metal wall art, Christmas decoration, and digital downloads of resume templates all in one store. They've all built a store and branded it around one narrow focus area, and they go deep with many products in that area. 2, number of product listings. There seems to be a direct relationship between the number of products listed in a store and the number of sales that the store makes. Note that the top 10 stores have an average of over 4,000 listings, whereas the bottom 10 have an average of 871 listings, or just 465 listings if we exclude the one outlier, Zoe's Attic. This makes perfect sense, that more listings means more sales. With a lot of products, you're more likely to have exactly what a shopper is looking for, and with more products listed, it's more likely that the shopper can even find your store on Etsy. Remember, Etsy has 5.4 million active sellers, meaning stores that are open for business. It's hard for your store to get found in that vast sea of stores. Each additional listing is yet another opportunity for an Etsy shopper to stumble across your store and then hopefully look around and buy one of your products. And there's one other benefit of all the listings. Think about how you try to get a shopper's attention. One way is to run Etsy ads. If you run Etsy ads, you'll pay 25 cents to 50 cents every time someone clicks on the ad and comes to your store, even if they never buy anything from you. In contrast, you could list a whole bunch of products for 20 cents each for 4 months, and you don't pay anything else, even though a shopper may click on those products multiple times and come to your store and look around. In other words, the listings may serve some of the same purpose as the ads, but at a potentially lower cost. Speaking of a lower cost, there's no cost like free, and that's the cost to you of hitting the like button below this video if you're enjoying it. These videos take a ton of time to make, and it's great feedback to me if you hit the free like button to let me know that you find it helpful. Also, if you're interested in seeing me address other topics in entrepreneurship and personal finance, hit the subscribe button too. I'd love to have you join me. Thank you very much. Number 3, time in business. The most successful stores have been at it for years. These are not stores who just set up in the past year or two and shot to the top of the charts. They've worked at it for years. The top 10 stores have an average age of 8.1 years, and the bottom 10 have an average age of 6.5 years. It can take years to do all the necessary steps to claw to the top of the charts. We learn here that it's not just good execution, but also patience and perseverance. To set up the store, refine the product offerings, add listings, perfect fulfillment, build traffic to the stores, probably driving traffic from both on and off Etsy, and get many, many good reviews from customers to build proof that this is a good store to buy in. Expect it to take a while. Number 4, prices. In general, and it's a little hard to know for sure, but it appears that the prices for the top 10 stores are lower than in the bottom 10 stores. When I reviewed the prices of products for sale in the top 10 stores and then averaged them out, and I'll admit this was far from precise, I calculate an average price of about $10 as compared to about $17 for the bottom 10 stores. Regardless though, it was clear that the majority of the prices in these top stores were at $20 or less, with a quarter of the stores appearing to have slightly higher average prices from maybe $25 to $40 per item. It makes sense that lower price items would sell a lot more because, from a shopper's perspective, there's lower risk. Also, remember, the average sale transaction on Etsy in Q4 of 2022 was just $42. The typical shopper in Etsy is not a big spender. In summary then, we've learned that the most successful shops have a defined niche that they're targeting, primarily for women shoppers, have been at it for many years, have a lot of products listed for sale, and generally use price points around $20 or less per item. Also, we can observe that their stores and listings look really good. However, and this is important, we don't know if copying these characteristics in our own stores is sufficient for us to break out of the pack of competitors. Etsy has 5.4 million active sellers. So what we don't know is how many of them also have really good stores and lots of great listings, but still can't get many sales. If we knew that most of the well-optimized stores who'd been open for a few years with lots of listings did a pretty good business, whereas the stores with few listings that were not optimized well did not do a good business, then we could feel pretty good about our prospects because all we need to do is execute on the important elements. Unfortunately, we don't know the answer to that question. Okay, now, as promised, here's the number one thing that all sellers on Etsy need to know. I pulled data from several years of reporting that Etsy made to the SEC, part of the government. This shows us the trend over the past few years through 2022 and some key data about the Etsy marketplace. I share this so you have a realistic expectation, not to demoralize you or discourage you from selling on Etsy. One of the biggest killers to success is caused by starting something with the wrong expectations and then getting demoralized and quitting. Knowledge is power. Here's what I found. Starting in 2019, we see that the average sales per active Etsy seller was $1,865 for the year. In 2020, there were 85 million items for sale on Etsy by 4.4 million active sellers, and the Etsy marketplace had full year sales of $10.3 billion. That gave the average seller sales of $2,281 in 2020, which was a nice increase from 2019. What was going on in the economy in 2020? COVID lockdowns, a lot of people staying home and with more free time, and the launch of massive government stimulus programs to put money in people's pockets. Let the shopping begin. In 2021 then, COVID lockdowns and stay-at-home plans continued and stimulus money was flowing freely into the economy. The number of items for sale on Etsy increased a lot to almost 100 million items. There was a big increase in sellers to 5.3 million, up from 4.4 million the prior year, and a big increase in sales on the marketplace to 12.2 billion. This increased the average sales per seller to $2,302 in 2021, up only slightly from the prior year. Why did the average not increase much when the overall marketplace sales increased by 20%? Because there was a big increase in the number of sellers, competition, selling on Etsy. Then in 2022, people started returning to work, the big government stimulus programs were ending, and inflation started to take off, which began squeezing people's budgets. The number of items available for sale on Etsy increased only slightly to just above 100 million, and the number of active sellers increased slightly also to 5.4 million. But total sales on the Etsy marketplace fell, down to 11.8 billion from 12.2 the year before. Lower total marketplace sales spread over a slightly higher number of sellers meant the average sales per active seller decreased in 2022 from the year before, down to $2,169. What might we expect in 2023 then, in terms of average sales per seller? Well, given the popularity of how to succeed on Etsy videos on YouTube, I'd guess the number of active sellers and the number of items for sale on Etsy should be flat or maybe up in 2023, but that gross marketplace sales could be flat to down for the same reason as they decreased in 2022. People are squeezed for money and may be decreasing spending, particularly as we head into a potential recession. This combination would mean that average sales per Etsy seller could decrease yet again in 2023. This is the important point. The data shows us that even though the marketplace as a whole has shown growth over the past few years, the increase in competition has left the average Etsy seller with a stagnant share of sales. And given all the excellent advice on YouTube about how to sell on Etsy, more and more people are learning the tricks and tactics needed to do well. As a seller, that means the level of competition is increasing. To stand out, to get a decent slice of the pie, you need to start with information, knowing what you need to do, but then it's all about execution. You need to execute really well and give it time to work. That doesn't guarantee success, but it maximizes the chance of it. Good luck. I'll see you in the next one.